So I'm really excited to be here today. I think you guys have seen some really fantastic technology to help bring teams together. And we've been talking about it a lot this week, that design and construction is a team sport. And when we think about our technology, sometimes we get in the way of teams working better today. And that's what we're going to talk about, a significant investment in our Revit business to enhance the way people can collaborate. So we think about the evolution of building information modeling in terms of yesterday and tomorrow. We have a lot of investment streams in play right now to try to facilitate those evolutions. The thing we're going to talk about today is what we're doing for collaboration. You know, yesterday things are locally collaborative, and tomorrow they really need to be socially shared. And so we've done a lot of investment to get ourselves towards that place. And building information modeling as a process is something that's really enabled fundamental improvements in how people deliver buildings on time, on budget, and in a less resource intensive way. So there's a lot of things that are facilitated, a lot less models that need to be recreated, and less of those sawtooth diagrams that we've been talking about for the last decade. In terms of the collaboration process, it's really the same thing. This is one project from China. 14 different companies were involved in the building and construction of this project. That's a lot of people that needed to get information. That's a lot of people that needed to get a shared understanding. Those are the collaboration things that are happening. But the reality of how that process happens is it really is something that runs on IT labor and expensive hardware. When we think about how stuff is being sent around amongst the team members, it's that, plus the mental horsepower of the people that are sitting in front of their devices all day long solving hard problems. And that's kind of crazy in the year 2014, and we got to do better than that, and that's what this investment's all about. So the first big piece of it is providing access to the project data to everybody in a way that is way easier than uploading to an FTP site every Friday afternoon. You know, that's kind of nuts. Or creating VPN tunnels between your domains to run Revit server and, you know, all sorts of stuff like that. So what we've done is we've changed the way the Revit application interacts with the central definition of that model. So today, 99.9% of the time for a Revit user, you hit the save button. That is a transaction inside of your wide area network, sync with central, and you're done. But unless I'm inside of that domain, I don't see that change, and I can't even change the data if I'm working at a Starbucks on a Saturday morning. So it's not going to work. So what we've done is we've taken that building information model, we put it in the cloud, in a service we call A360 Collaboration for Revit. And what that makes possible is the entire project team to be working on the same sets of models at the same time, as long as they have an internet connection. No IP addresses to type in, nothing. So it's a really fundamental shift that we think will at least get technology out of the way for more collaborative workflows. We understand that project contract structure, the way your business practices may still be impediments to more collaborative workflows, but we don't want Autodesk technology to be the reason why you can't work in a more collaborative way, and that's what this is all about here. So in terms of the key value, you've got multiple firms concurrently working on models together. Does that mean it's all one single Revit model that everyone's working in? Technically, it's possible. We wouldn't recommend it for perfectly good reasons that any Revit user in this room will probably understand. But when you have all of those models sitting right next to each other, and you've got access between your specialty consultants and your primary lead teams around the same sets of data, interesting things can happen. And we've seen it already, and this service has actually been running in a production beta for the last 6 months. We've got actually a gentleman here who's been leading up one of the projects that's been running in that, and if you guys have questions, he's available as well. But moving along here, the other big thing that we've heard from our customers, if you think about the data access part of it, nearly every solution on the market today requires servers to be set up inside your network and managed, and you got to go type in some client INI file sitting on each user's machine to point to some host name that connects. I mean, it's just kind of a nightmare. And, you know, that's that fuel of IT labor and expensive hardware. We did not want that. So one of our big mantras in developing this system is you sign in with your Autodesk identity. We know who you are. Via A360, we know what projects you're a member of, and we make it just dead simple to get working on that data. So we wanted it to be really, really simple here. And then the final piece is that building information model is directly accessible to other cloud services. So you guys saw that large model viewer, that web viewer, that's really a fantastic piece of technology. When you're dealing with collaboration for Revit, your model lives in the cloud. So there's no upload button to get things into A360. It's already there. And we've spent a huge amount of engineering investment for that translation pipeline. So instead of sitting there and doing a PDF plot of every sheet in your drawing and letting your machine churn for 3 hours and cross your fingers that there isn't an error, we do all that work for you in the cloud, and it's there in a clientless web viewer. So anybody, your principal who's dangerous in Revit, and you probably don't want him even opening the thing up, he can still experience what's going on in your design, and nobody has to sit there and spend a labor time to actually be producing those outputs. And so we see a lot of opportunity in this space, well beyond what you currently see today, and we're excited about it. So another key piece I want to talk about around the access to the data part is that we've done some intelligent data caching. So a lot of people don't recognize that Revit has done delta transfers for 8 years. So there's nothing really new here on that side. But once you basically get the model up and running for the very first time on your machine, we build a local cache of that data. And from that point on, you're really only transacting in deltas. And we have this little thing running we call an accelerator, and that allows to actually prefetch the new deltas when other people submit their changes. So it's rare that if you're sitting in Revit and you need to consume some new changes, you actually have to download as part of that transaction. So it really helps improve the overall customer experience. So that's the access the data part. The second piece is enhancing communication amongst the team members. So if you look at Revit today, it's really almost comical that there's no way to communicate, but you're supposed to work as teams. So what you end up having is, this is an actual customer project, and so they take a drafting view and they start typing in text there for like communication amongst the team. And then they set that to be the view everyone sees when they open up the model, and like, it works, but come on, we can do better than that. And so we think we really have. And so there's a lot of precedent in the market for communication tools. I mean, I'm dating myself, but I remember in being like 6th grade using AOL Instant Messenger, in like 1996. So there's nothing new here. But we have a couple of things that make it unique for Autodesk to cause an investment here. And the first thing is that we represent one of the only pieces of consistent technology across the entire project team. Not everybody has a Google Docs implementation that gives Hangouts for everybody. What it comes down to is we are one of the only people that know the identities of everyone in the project, and we can facilitate communication. The second piece is you're using our authoring tools, so we know the context of what you're working on. And that's a really powerful thing, and we'll talk about that in a second. But what you end up having is basically a chat tool sitting right in Revit. You can reach out and chat with somebody, anybody on your project team. So you've got that synchronous communication. You have team chats, individual chats, screen sharing. We've got a whole bunch of stuff in the long term that we want to work on here. The other big piece is that contextual awareness. So no one wants to manage their contact list. You just want to work on your data, and you want to know who else is working on that data at that very time, and that's exactly what we deliver. So who's in your current model and who's working on other models in your project. People on the other models are probably your consultants. Maybe you don't always want to have to email those people, and we think that's a really powerful enhancement. And then the final piece is we've taken, you guys might know Workshare Monitor or Bluestreak Activity Stream. We've taken an activity feed and we put it directly in that tool. So you're seeing who's changing what. You're also able to click on that card and say, hey, what did you just work on? And over time, we'd love to make it obvious what they changed instead of having to ask the question. But we're pretty excited about what we have thus far. So that is the second leg of value. Now the third leg of value you guys have heard all about already, which is A360 Team. So this service is directly integrated into A360 Team. If you create a project in A360 Team, that's what you put your models in inside of Revit. So rather than making you create a project in Revit and then the same thing over in A360, that's crazy. We didn't do that. So A360 is that collaboration backbone for us. So you work inside of there, your data is automatically surfaced inside of A360. So for us, when we think about it, your Revit model is not really your data for your project. Your project is a bunch of stuff, just like Scott was talking about. And for us, we think A360 Team is that central place. And more moving forward, we want to have that be the common place, regardless of the product. I mean, this is part of our overall strategy right now, is to stop thinking in project and product silos, because we know teams are using multiple products across different team members, and it's crazy to have different settings and different Autodesk products that do roughly the same thing. So let's talk a little bit about how that goes. You guys saw this slide already, but I love this because this is like where we're going. It's really exciting for me. But let's talk about what we've done. We've given access to the project data. we've given enhanced communication, and we've connected the entire team, and that's A360 Collaboration for Revit. In the interest of time, I'm going to show a couple of videos instead of a live demo. I know you guys would probably like to ask questions here, so let's do that. So the first thing, the key idea here is we didn't want you to have to learn a whole lot of things, so you can go right, oops, that should have auto-played. But it didn't. Awesome. So I'll just talk through some static images instead. Yeah. So you don't have to learn anything new. You just go to your file open browser. You see A360 there. You pick your models there. There's no local files to think about anymore. There's technically local cache, but we manage that. Okay, well, the model says A360 when you save. Again, it's clearly an A360 hosted model, and when you're working inside of things, wow, that's awesome. When you're working inside of the product, that communication tool really connects you. So if somebody starts to sync with Central, you get a little visual update. You can go to your activities feed, see who's sharing what. It's connecting the team in a really more meaningful way. And remember, that model is on the iPad of every team member in the project. It's on the smartphone of every team member in the project, and no one had to hit an upload button a single time. So it's really, really powerful stuff. We're really excited about it. People can start subscribing to it next week. And now I'm going to go back to Bud, and we're going to answer some questions.
All right, thank you, Kyle.